Back when Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid aired in 2017, it was an absolute joy for me and many others. And as we got the sequel, Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid S, in the summer 2021 anime season, there was definitely a lot of excitement behind this series. But this is my review of Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid S, a 12-episode series done by Kyoto Animation. So let's jump into it. For those unfamiliar with Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid, it essentially follows a lady who is an office worker named Kobayashi, who has basically saved a dragon while she was in a drunk stupor from a sword that was piercing her. And after saving this dragon, she ends up kind of, unfortunately, while she was drunk, accepting to let this dragon stay with her at her home. And when she kind of, sobers up and wakes up the next day, she realizes, yeah, this dragon is now at her home. She has made herself look like a human and is dressed up like a maid because she obviously believes that Kobayashi has a thing for French maids. So, in following this whole debacle, we basically have a lot of these dragons that are from this other world that essentially come to stay with Kobayashi because they all realize that Toru is staying with her, and they kind of want to learn more about this Kobayashi that she's staying with. And thus begins this almost kind of formula of having, again, the introductions of these different dragons who disguise themselves as humans, living with Kobayashi, who is an office worker that works very late every day, and almost this acceptance of family, because Kobayashi has always lived alone, and she never really opened herself up to other people, whereas now she's kind of learning to open up and realize that she kind of needs somebody at her side. And mixed around this is a lot of comedy beats that are kind of centered around the idea of dragons trying to live within human society. And as we get into the second season, our Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid S, this formula continues as we end up introducing really early on another dragon from the Chaos faction named Ilulu. And as Ilulu is kind of introduced into this kind of realm, we're getting a little more into the aspect of the Chaos faction, the Harmony faction, as well as the Spectator faction of this other world. As we kind of find out later on, there's a little bit of a story behind Toru, her involvement, the aspect of what's happening in this other world, as well as a lot of backstory behind a lot of these characters that we never really got any backstory to before. We dive into Elma. We obviously get a lot about Ilulu. We get a little bit into Kana herself. Just a lot of these little sprinkled in backstories that really make these characters become a lot more fleshed out and more interesting in the end. And that's where I feel a bit of a distinction between the second season and the first season, where I almost feel like the first season was very heavily focused on comedy with this sprinkled heart underneath it, that every now and then it would kind of get into things like discrimination. It would get into things of human nature that these dragons don't really understand are a thing, as well as a lot of heart in the idea of showing the good sides of human nature as well. It's about these dragons. Yes, it's about these fantasy elements. It's about Kobayashi and her desire to really essentially not be alone. Whereas I think the second season, this kind of shifts. The scale kind of tips a little bit, where I think a lot of the focus in this season, yes, is a lot of backstory on the characters, but in that backstory and these character moments, it's more about the heart, and the comedy is a little bit more in the background. So you get that shift of the comedy and the heart shifting a little bit. So I think there's a lot more moments where the characters can develop and change and grow in this particular season. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because these moments were really fantastic. I really did have these connecting points to all these characters, and I loved seeing them grow. I loved seeing them get over their issues that they've had in the past. Seeing what happens between Toru and Elma, seeing where Kana came from, seeing this development between Toru and Kobayashi in almost an acceptance in both ways. Going from this Toru being obsessed with Kobayashi being a punchline to addressing why Toru feels that she needs to go above and beyond all the time for Kobayashi. This moment where we go from Kobayashi really kind of going, you're too clingy, to going, but wait, why does she love me so much? And I think, yes, that can be off-putting when you're really wanting nothing but comedy, but I think when you can properly balance the two of them, it turns into a very excellent show that provides you both the laughs and the moments where the characters really develop and you grow to love them even more. Honestly, I can't express enough how much each one of these episodes were special to me. Each one of these episodes had something in it that just really had me. It had me just either emotionally, it had me laughing, it had me just wanting to learn more about these characters. And I think that ability to really create that bond in both storytelling and presentation is something that I just rarely find anywhere. It's enough that I had episodes where by the time it ended, I was just either smiling from ear to ear or just terribly sad that it was over. And I think a lot of that has to do with Kyoto Animation's touch. Kyoto Animation, unfortunately, has been away for quite a while. And to see this kind of a comeback for that studio, I couldn't ask for more. I am so happy to see them come back into the game. And they came out with a swinger. I really did treasure every episode that they produced of this anime. And like I said before, it just leaves me with sadness knowing that it's over and I don't have another episode to watch next week. This was literally my treasure each week to watch this series, and I'm sad to see it gone. And yes, even though it's a slice of life fantasy comedy, I know that sounds a little weird, there's going to be moments where it has these incredible action pieces, and it always feels like Kyoto Animation has these moments of flexing kind of mixed in with their Kobayashi's Dragon Maid. And they had plenty of those moments in this series. I especially love the scene between Toru and Elma was a fantastic action piece that just had me going, holy crap, this studio is flexing right now. And not only that, but having this incredibly emotional moment just thrown in there out of nowhere, it showed me that to this day, this studio is still an incredible studio and I can't get enough of it. So yeah, in the end, this season was incredible. Visual masterpiece. Amazing action pieces, animation was phenomenal, the music was great, getting into so many characters, getting into Elma's backstory, getting into the other world, getting into the factions, getting into Toru's backstory, Elma's backstory, learning about the dragons more and how they basically formed the society they've come into, becoming human. All these elements, Kobayashi's insecurities, there were so many episodes of Kobayashi's insecurities, and accepting of what she has. It was a phenomenal season. I think if anybody has not watched the first season, please do. Give this series a shot. It is absolutely a fantastic series. And if you have not watched the second season yet, you definitely need to get into there because there's just so much here of our beloved characters that in the end I couldn't have asked for more. So I still love Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid so much. And like I said before, I'm just sad that it's gone. Hopefully a season 3 will be announced soon, but we need to give Kyoto Animation a break every now and then. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on Miss Kobayashi Dragon Maid S. I hope you guys enjoyed my review. If you did, leave a like down below. Comment, let me know what you thought of the series. Subscribe if you haven't already. Share this video if you can. Support us on Patreon if you can. We definitely appreciate all that support us. And y'all take care.